All right, so today we are working on making what I call Rainbow Pong. So let's do that. We're just going. This will be mainly a demonstration, and then I'll have you do some light extensions, but it won't be as full a project as it was with the maze game. But hopefully, we can all learn something together from doing this. So we'll import Pygame Zero run, and we're going to add some more imports later as we need them. We're going to introduce a new constant that belongs in Pygame, and that is called the title field. You'll need to save this, of course. And what I want you to do is, we've created different folders for each one. So you can see I'm calling mine Game 3 because I like them stacked in order, but you can do whatever you want. But I have a new folder called Rainbow Pong, and that's where I'll be able to put my images and such. And then we'll just call the game Rainbow Pong. That's what we'll save the file as. And just to demonstrate how the title field works, you can go ahead and run this extraordinarily simple game. And you'll see that we have the standard icon, although this can be changed as well, similarly done. But now the window says Rainbow Pong instead of just Pygame Zero or whatever it used to say. Pygame window, I think. So that's kind of a new thing for us. But I want to set the width to be 1,000 and the height of this game to be 700. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a rainbow paddle. So let me show you how I did that. So here is my rainbow paddle, and I made it with Paint 3D. You can use any art program, or if you're on the web, you can use Pixel. That's Piskel. That's a really cool GIF maker. But I just used Paint 3D, so let me go through the process of how I did that. So I make this new thing, and I'm going to resize the canvas to make it exactly the size that I want. Okay? By the way, your zoom level, you should be able to... Let's see, you should be able to see your zoom level. Not sure, but somewhere you can. But I went to canvas and I always turn on transparent canvas just in case. But actually, I guess this time you don't have to because we're going to use the entire canvas as our image. So what I did was I made it exactly how wide I wanted it to be. And I think I went with like 20 pixels. And then how high do I want it to be? Well, I was thinking maybe like 50. That's probably not high enough. Let's try like 75. Even still, maybe like 90, 100. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. All right. So now that I've got that, I went over here to my brushes. And I've got a series of different colors that I can use. And I just kind of made the rainbow, basically. Now, some of the other more advanced drawing programs actually have some pretty cool features that allow you to actually color with a rainbow. We have lots of different pins we can choose here, like an oil brush, see watercolor, that might be neat. And so I just started brushing, okay? And as I did, I went through the colors of the rainbow. So I said, red. Then I went to an orange maybe, and I might go here to get more of a little more control over it actually. Ooh, I like that. So, and then it adds it to the bottom. So then I went through and I might, do some. Oh, it kind of bled a little bit, didn't it? Red, orange, maybe a yellow. Then go into my green. And I got like a blue, right? Actually, I'll probably do like a light blue, then an indigo, and then a violet. So that's how I made my rainbow paddle. Okay. I do kind of like the watercolor look. I'm going to try a different one though. I want to see what happens if I use that one. Ooh, that is bold. Yeah, I don't know if I like that. I kind of like the watercolor look. So I'm going to save that right now. So I'll just go over yonder to I've got a folder here for my Rainbow Pong. I made a new folder called Images. And let's go there, and you see I've already got a rainbow paddle, so I'm just going to call this paddle because I've already got a rainbow paddle. And it's .png, which is nice. Okay. Well, we need a ball. It's time to make a ball. So let's make a new one and make a ball. All right, so I'm going to go to my canvas. Oh, this time I definitely transparent canvas. And I think the ball would be best at like 40 by 40 maybe. And now you can go in here and just do 2D shape and you can get a circle. You can try to use the 3D object too. It's up to you. I'm not sure, exactly how, that color works out. One of the problems I have with this is that you can't really like paint it specifically. So matte, gloss. Gloss isn't bad. I do kind of like the polished metal look though. Yeah, I think I'll go with gloss. And I'm gonna go with red. Can you color it anything else? I don't know. Yeah, it looks like I can kind of do that. So I can maybe make it like a. Maybe other. Oh wow, that's cool. Red, orange. Maybe a little bit of yellow here. A little green. A little indigo. And a violet. Yes, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so back we go. Let's make some actors. Well, I think you can imagine what we need to make. We need to make a ball. So ball gets actor. And we tell it the image name. And I'm actually going to I'm just going to make the actor. I'm not actually going to put it somewhere yet. Okay. So I got my ball there. Okay. And I'm now gonna just go ahead and do a quick check. See what everything looks like. See if I like it. Well, I haven't actually added the player in the draw method. I just realized, but okay. But everything's looking good. Okay. So here's what I want to do. We want to go ahead and make a couple players, right? But I want to have a randomness between which player starts with the ball. Okay, so first I'll make the player. So I'll call it player one. Is an actor. And what did I call? I think I just call it paddle now. Yeah, just calling it paddle. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my paddle in the center of the screen. I'm sorry, center of the screen vertically, but I'm going to move in a little bit from each side. So I should maybe make a variable for this, but I'll just go ahead and say that we're going to move in 20. And then I'll say comma, and I'll use height divided by 2. Okay. Then player 2 is going to be on the right-hand side. So I use width minus 20. All right, so just a little bit of vocabulary here. We haven't talked a ton about this, but what exactly is happening when I say this? Well, I want to point out a couple of things. It looks like we're calling a function, but you'll notice that the function name begins with a capital letter actor. And that's because it's not a traditional function like what we've written. This is what we call a constructor. A constructor is for constructing objects. So if I run this code right now, you'll notice that we are going to have in our variable list. Can I move that down here? I guess I can. Well, I actually have to close the game, and then it'll list it. So you notice we have the actor class, which I use to make actors. But you'll notice that player 1 is a Pygame Zero actor object. Okay? So objects require us to construct them by calling the constructor. Okay? So that's what makes this an object. And objects are really cool. Objects have contained in them, methods that you can call to do things. And also variables like their X and Y. They're all contained in that one thing. And that'll make more sense as we go on in this class. Okay, so we've got a couple players and we've got a ball. But what I want to do is I want to randomly assign who has the ball. So we're going to make a variable called P1 serve. And we could just say true, and that would make it player 1 serve every time. But I think it would be better if we randomly choose it. So we need to import something. So let's go here and say import random. So we're going to import random at the top of our program after importing PGZ run. And I'm going to assign player 1 to be the server 50% of the time. So I'm going to do this in 2 ways. Watch how I do it in 2 different ways. I'm going to say if random.randint 1 to 10 is less than or equal to 5, P1 serve equals true. So randint is a function in the random module. And it simply returns a number between 1 and 10. And I'm asking if that number is less than or equal to 5. Well, that's going to happen 50% of the time. 50% of the time, you're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The other 50% of the time, you get 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I could say, else P1 serve equals false. Now, I don't need to make a variable that says P2 serve, because if it's not P1 serve, it's P2 serve. Player 1 serve versus player 2. So this is a fine way to do this. But we can actually do this a lot simpler, because this statement here is called a Boolean expression. It evaluates to true or false. And we're asking, if it evaluates to true, assign true. So why don't I just assign the value it returns? So if this makes sense, you can shorten this to just say this. The assignment operator in order of operations is last. So any math that I ask Python to do will be done before, I need to get rid of that colon, but it will be done before we assign it. So we're going to pick a random number 1 through 10, and then Python's going to compare that number to 5. If the number is less than or equal to 5, P1 serve will get the value true. If it's greater than 5, it will get the value false. Okay? So now we're going to assign the position of the ball. So we need to go over a little bit about actor position. Okay, so let's talk about, I've run the program, so I actually have all my actors loaded up. I just want to go over a couple of things about positioning. So if I say player1.right, you'll notice that I have a variable assigned to it. That is the right corner of my actor. If I say player1.left, you'll notice it's at 10. And that's because we have the X value that we set the actor at was actually 20 in from the side. Now, the X value is right in the middle of the two. We also have player1.top. That's the Y coordinate. Player1.bottom. That's the bottom of the image. And then player1.y is the middle. Okay? But we also have some things called position variables. So I brought up the Pygame Zero documentation. So x, y is the location of center. Actor.x, actor.y. This full left side, this x coordinate is actor.left. This is actor.right, actor.top, actor.bottom. But we can also get the XY coordinates by using these special words. If you're more specific about the location, you'll actually get a point. So we get like center, mid right, top right, bottom right. So let me show you how that works. If I say player1 dot mid right, you'll notice that it actually returns an XY position. Okay? And if I say mid left or player1 dot center, it's that. Now that's actually the same. That's just a rebranding to give it a new name, but that's the same as position, POS. All right, so I say all that because what I want to do is position my paddle somewhere depending on whose serve it is. So I'm going to say if it is P1 serve, ball.position is equal to player 1 dot mid right. So my player 1's on the left. So since my player 1's on the left, I'm on the ball on the right. Now I chose this situation here. Now position is the center of the ball. So this is actually going to have a little bit of overlap as the ball's on the paddle. If you want, instead, you could have you could say ball dot mid left. Now that's going to be they're going to be what you think of called tangent. It's going to be just touching the paddle. Okay, so we can do it either way. I'll just leave it like that for now. Otherwise, I'm going to say ball dot mid right is equal to player 2 dot mid left. And remember, those are entire points. Both an X and a Y. It takes care of everything for me. Well, before we go too much further, I'd like to go ahead and start drawing to the screen so we can start seeing some of this stuff in action. So def draw, recall, is the function that we must define. Now, all this stuff on the outside here, this is all just my setup, my global variables and whatnot. We're going to have a lot of global variables, I'm afraid. But I'll say screen.fill, and I'm just going to do all black. We didn't make a variable for it. We're just going to call the RGB 0, 0, 0. And then we'll say player1.draw. Player2.draw. Ball.draw. And let's try it out. Whoops. I said P1 server. Or sever. P1 sever. Oh, what? P1 serve. Little typo there. Okay, so I've got my game ready to go here. Unfortunately, I can't move the paddle or the ball, right? I kind of feel like my part of my ball got cut off by my canvas. Kind of sad about that. I may have to fix that. Oh, that's okay. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Wonder what my ball 3 looks like. Okay, we're going to add some more variables. You ready? So here we go. We're going to say we're going to add quite a bit of variables. And I think it would be a good idea to label our code a little bit. So I'm going to call this is a comment. We're just going to say actors. Okay? Then we'll go here and we'll label this one. We'll say determine which player serves first. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some global variables to control ball. So that's what these variables are going to be all about. Okay? So we've got our ball actor already, but first what I'm going to do is ball in play. And when the game starts, it's not in play. So it's false. Ball dx. Now, d means change. It's delta. So this is the way that the ball is moving in the x direction. It's not in play, so it's 0. This is ball dy. It is also not in play. And this is the ball speed. Those of you familiar with physics understand that speed is not a vector. It doesn't have direction. It's just a magnitude. It's how fast you're going. But once I take that speed and put it on a dx and a dy, then I got the direction and the speed together. Okay? All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do some keyboard mapping. So I'll call this key mappings. We've done this before, so this should seem familiar. Player 1 will be using W and S, and player 2 will be using up and down. I like a little space there. You don't have to have it, though. And I think that's it. Just, I got to... Yeah, that should be fine. So the keyboard mapping that we're making here with a dictionary, it's going to allow for smooth movement. Because then I can hold down the up and down. I don't have to spam it and hit it a bunch of times and move my paddle up and down. But we are going to have some other buttons, but they're going to be ones that we don't care about holding. We're just going to hit. All right? So, let's write our update method. Update function, I should say. So I like to have draw right there at the top. Let's do update below it. So remember, draw is called to draw every frame. Update is called, in between the frames, to update positions of actors. Well, we need to know, is the ball in play? So I'm going to say, I need to get access to a global variable. Actually, I don't need that. Never mind, because I'm not changing it. As long as I'm not changing it, it's okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to say update players. We're going to have to write that function, right? So this is for controls paddle movement, okay? After that, the ball will either start moving or it will not, depending on if the ball has been served, right? When the game starts, it's not in play until you serve it. So we're going to say if not ball in play. So if the ball is not in play, then we're going to move the ball on the paddle. So that means, ball follows the paddle. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with Pong, but as the paddle is moved up and down until you choose where to launch the ball from, the ball follows you, so that you can serve it from anywhere on the screen. Anywhere up and down, because you can't move side to side. Well, if it's not in play, then if it's not in play, we move on the paddle. So the else would be it is in play. Update ball. I could have written this the other way. I could have just said if ball in play, update ball. Else move on paddle. So we could have removed that not and then put this function here and this function here. But so move ball. So just adding comments so that we can come back and know exactly what we're doing. All right, so I want to do is I want to update. I want to do the move on paddle first because that'll be something that we can actually see. So I'll just say update ball. And we're not going to do that yet, so we'll just say pass. I'm going to say def. We'll have to come back to that one. Let's say def move on paddle. Move on paddle. So this is how this one works. If it is player one serve, then ball dot. Now, player one is on the left, so this will be the ball's left side. So I'll say mid left equals player one dot mid right. So that's exactly the same line of code that we had up here. In fact, you could just copy and paste that. But as the player moves up and down, you see the ball is going to follow them because we're reassigning the ball position as they go. Else, ball dot mid right will equal player 2 dot mid left. All right, it's time for us to make our keys. We've waited long enough. We've got to do it. So we need to define what happens when someone presses a key and what happens when they release a key. And we'll do just the basic ones now, but we'll add more later. So on key down, remember, is a function that, again, is called for as automatically by Python when someone presses a key. Not when they release the key, but when they press it down. And we have to have this parameter key here because that's what it sends it with. So we're going to say if key is equal to, now keys is like this is what we call an enumeration. It's just a special listing of description of the key. So keys.w, okay? That means they've pressed the W key. So I'm going to set my presses dictionary. So presses W becomes true. And if they're pressing down, we're going to turn that off. So if they were currently pressing the S and then all of a sudden they press the W, it'll switch to W because that's their most recent press. We know that a lot of times players are still pressing one button when they try and start pressing another. So it's just a common thing to do that. Now if keys equals keys.s, we'll say presses, bracket, parentheses S is true. And we'll say presses, we'll go ahead and set the W to false. If the key is equal to keys.up, so they're pressing the up key, then we'll say presses, bracket up, is true. And presses, bracket down, is false. If the key is equal to keys dot down, then presses down becomes true, and presses up becomes false. So that's all the key down. So remember, we're doing all this work so that users can press a key down and not have to press it repeatedly. They can press it, and as long as they hold it down, it will continue to work because we're storing that the press has been made in our presses dictionary. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is write key up method function. Def on key up key. So this function is automatically called by Pygame Zero when you release a key. So upon this releasing of a key, we're just going to figure out what key it was they pressed and set the presses dictionary value for that key to false. So I think you can imagine how this goes. If key is equal, that remember two equal signs to see if it equals something. So if they just keyed up W, that means they've released the W key. So we need to set presses W to false to indicate to us that they are no longer pressing it. So you can see I'm assigning each one of these special values in the dictionary back to false. Okay, that is good. We've got it. All right, it is time for us to write our update players function. Remember, we promised to write that earlier. Okay, so remember, we need to make sure we have, before we can test our program again, we got to have all three of these methods written. Our update ball does absolutely nothing right now. We'll come back and we'll erase the word pass and do that later. But I want to make sure that we can move our players. So then we can actually see something. So we're going to do def update players. And basically, you can imagine what this does. If the players, if the up key is pressed, player 2 will move up. If the W key is pressed, player 1 will move up, and so forth. All right, so I don't want to use magic numbers, so I'm going to be setting a speed variable. So speed equals 5. If you use magic numbers, then it gets confusing. People don't know why you're setting things to certain things. So now when we use the word speed, we know, okay, they're talking about movement. So this is where we use our dictionary, okay? So remember, with the dictionary, you have a variable name. For me, it's presses. And then you put a open bracket, and you have to have what's called a key. You look things up with a key. Well, the key for me right now is W. So what Python will do is we'll go in and two presses, and it will look up what's assigned to W. So it's kind of like a dictionary is kind of a way to to kind of group lots of variables together and not have to make a different variable for each one of them. So if presses bracket W and player 1 dot top. Now, dot top is the Y coordinate at the top of player 1. Now, if I want to get the XY point, I'd have to say something like left top or top left, top right. I can't remember. I have to check the documentation, as I often do. Yeah, top left, mid top, top right. These all return a position variable, x comma y in parentheses. But if you just say top, you get just the y value, which is actually perfect for me because I want to make sure that the top is not past 0. Okay? I don't want that to happen. Remember, 0 is the top of your screen, right? The height of your screen is at the bottom. So I want to make sure that they got some room here. Then I'll just say player 1 dot y minus equals speed. So they can actually move a few, like 4 pixels off the screen, which is fine. If you want to say, you could say, and player 1 dot top, greater than 4, and do the math, whatever. Or player 1 minus speed. But I'm just going to let it happen. So what does minus equals speed do? Well, it's going to take the y coordinate and subtract 5 from it. Remember, y's get bigger going down in traditional computer science graphics, so it's not like algebra class. So this is actually moving up, which is what we want to happen when the W key is pressed. Now, if presses bracket W and player 1 dot bottom this time is less than height, that means that we have room to move down. Now, I certainly don't want the player running off the screen. That can be pretty unsettling, to say the least. And I'll say if presses, quote, up, and player 2 dot top is greater than 0, then player 2 dot y minus equals speed. And if presses down and player 2 dot bottom is less than height, then we'll say player 2 dot y plus equals speed. So just a couple of comments here. Notice that I am not using if, elif, and else. That would be if I only wanted one person to press one button at a time. In this case, we are going to allow multiple buttons to be pressed at a time. Multiple things happen, which makes sense because player 1 will usually be pressing his control, and player 2 might be pressing her control, and so forth. Okay, so I think we've got enough here that we can probably test this. Oh, I put a W here. I need to put an S. That should be an S, y'all. All right, so if we run the program, we should see that we can control the paddle. And for this particular instance, it looks like player 1 got the serve first. If I run it again, it might be different. Well, it wasn't. I am curious. Hopefully, it's going to be different. Okay. All right. Yay! Okay, I got a different person with the ball first. It took me a while. All right, it's time for us to be able to serve the ball. So, because we just want someone to hit a button, I'll code this in on key up. So we are in the function on key up. And I'm going to have the player who uses the W and S key will be using the Alt key on my keyboard from the far left. You could use Z, X, C, anything you want, but that's what I chose. So I'll say if key is equal to keys dot left alt, A-L-A-L-T, LALT. I felt like that was a comfortable position for the player, right, for the thumb. And remember, the key has been released, so pressing it won't do anything. You have to press and release it. So if they've done that, well, we need to ask some more questions. Sorry, I have a little premature exit there. Because there's other things. Pressing the serve key when it's not your serve shouldn't do anything. So I'll say and P1 serve, because it's got to also be player 1 serve. And pressing the serve key when the ball has already been served should not do anything. So we're going to add and not ball in play. So we have 3 and conditions. Now remember, when we have an and in a Boolean expression, everything has to be true. So they have to be releasing the left alt key. They have to be player 1 serve has to be true. And ball in play has to be false, since we said not ball in play. If all that's happened, we're going to call the method the function player 1 serves. And now we're ready to do player 2 serves. So if the key that's released is equal to keys dot. Now I didn't use the alt key here. It was too far away. I used the right control key. So RCTRL. Because there's 2 of them, you know. And now, if player 2 is trying to serve, it needs to not be player 1 serve. So we can say that. We can also say P1 serve equals false. We could say that. But I just find it more readable to just say and not P1 serve. And again, though, we need to not have the ball in play. Then what we'll do is we'll serve. So we get to write these things. Just zoomed out there so you can see both expressions fully written all at once. All right, we are ready for, I like to have the keys all the way at the bottom. So we're going to write it right above on key down. So we'll say def player 1 serves. All right, I'm going to need access to the ball speed, the ball dx, the ball dy, and the ball in play variable. So because we'll be changing them. Now I can read them. I can read global variables all I want. But if I'm going to be changing values, I need to get them. So I don't actually need ball speed, but I need ball dx, ball dy, ball in play. So we need to call the global keyword ball dx, ball dy, ball in play, because I'll be changing all of those values. And so the way Pong works is that if your paddle, like in this situation here, if my paddle is up at the top, this ball gets launched down at a 45-degree angle. If the paddle is down below, it launches this way. So it always goes the far way. Or, I don't know, maybe it doesn't, but that's the way I imagine Pong. That's at least how I remember it. I certainly haven't played it in a long time. But that's how our Pong is going to go. Just, you can change it if you like. So I'm going to say if player1.y is less than height divided by 2. So that means that they're in the top half of the screen, because remember, y variables get bigger as you go down. Then we're going to set the ball dy to ball speed. So remember, ball speed's a positive number, so this is going to be making it go down, because y's get bigger as you go down. Reverse from algebra class. Ball dx. Now, player 1 is on the left-hand side of the screen, so when he serves, the ball needs to go to the right, and x's get bigger to the right, so we'll say ball speed. Well, else, that means that the player 1 was in the bottom half of the screen, and we'll just say ball dy equals negative ball speed, making it go up. But ball dx will still be positive ball speed. And now what we need to do is we need to make the ball no longer in play. So we'll say ball in play is true, because now it's in play. And so since we're changing, we're actually assigning new values here. Because of that, we need to have this global keyword. All right, now player 2 serves. If you want, you can just copy and paste this whole thing right here and call it player 2 serves. And all that's going to change is we're going to put negative here and here, because player 2 serves from right to left. Oh, you know what? You are absolutely right. We do need to say player2.y. That would be bad. Okay. We are ready to write we're finally ready to go back and write the update ball. So here we go. Update ball. All right. I'm going to be changing some things, so I need to get access to them. And, this would be also where you'd have to get access to global variables for score and such like that I'm going to have you do. All right. There's going to be a lot of logic in this lesson, in this part of it, though. So if ball.collide rect with player 1 and ball dx is less than 0. So that's an important concept. Not just that it's colliding with player 1, but that it's coming from the right and hitting player 1. Because it could be colliding with player 1 as he's hitting it back to the right. Always a good idea to check for that. Well, what happens when player 1 hits the ball? He sends it back the other way. And remember, player 1 is going from left to right, so he wants the ball speed to be positive. Oh, that needs to be ball dx. So we're ball dx is the direction of movement, so the change in x is now ball speed. But if the ball is colliding with player 2 and the ball is going to the right, that means it's greater than 0, then ball.dx is equal to negative ball speed. And hopefully that makes sense to you. You can see it's going to be bouncing back and forth, right? All right, next we need to make the ball bounce off the ceiling. So if ball.top, top is the y coordinate at the top of the ball, is less than or equal to 0, and the ball dy is negative, negative is going up. So if we're hitting the top of the screen and we're going up, then we need to start going down. So make ball dy equal to positive ball speed. Likewise, if ball.bottom is greater than or equal to height, oh, and the ball is moving down. We want to make sure we don't want the ball to be, because sometimes the ball could be still touching the bottom while it's bouncing off, and then it'll sit there and bounce back and forth and hover on a line. We don't want that. So we want to double check that the ball is actually moving down, which means ball dy is positive. Well, then we'll set ball dy to a negative ball speed. So if any of those things happen, we're going to do that. And then finally, we're simply going to say ball.x plus equals ball dx, ball.y plus equals ball dy. Now, we're not going to be able to play the game yet. We're going to have to wait and finish that later. But we can start to explore it and play a little bit of the game. So. Okay, so when you run this, you should... Now, it's not... The ball is just going to run off the screen because we haven't fixed that yet. We'll fix that later. But as a task, you can go ahead and try and do it yourself. I think maybe you can figure out how to handle it. Make a score variable. If the ball runs off the screen, then you need to up the score. And you need to reposition the ball. Now, here's the rule. If player 1 serves it and gets the point, player 1 should get the ball back. So that's going to be your task, and we'll work on that next time.